Hi guys, it's Mrs. Avery. Today we're going to learn about percent bar graphs. So let's look at this first question that's on your assignment. The students in a class were each asked to name their favorite meal of the day. The results are shown in this percentage bar graph. All right, so this is a percentage bar graph. It shows us that each meal is divided into different shades of gray, really. And it tells us here in the key what each of these is. So this one here is breakfast because it's the darkest one, right? And now let's look at these tick marks and see how much they count for, okay? So this is 10%, 20%, 30%. So that means breakfast, 30% of the students in that class said breakfast was their favorite meal. Okay, let's look at lunch. Lunch is this little one. It's gray between the darker one and the lightest one. And I can see that it's only a 10% jump because from 30 to 40 is only a 10% jump. So I'm gonna write that here. Lunch is 10% of the total. Okay. My next one, the whitest one, is supper. Supper is another word for dinner, if you didn't know that. So this supper is the largest one. I'm going to count by tens because that's how much my tick marks are. So if we start here at 40 and we move 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. So 60% of the students say that supper or dinner is their favorite meal. Okay, so all of these 60, 10, and 30, these always have to add up to 100. So if these don't add up to 100, you have to check your work and figure out where you went wrong. It might have been with the amounts that each of these tick marks are going by. Okay, 60 plus 10 is 70, plus 30 is 100. So I know that my numbers are correct. Okay, that is my I know. That's what I know. That's what they're telling me. This is the most important thing, is the percents here. Okay, let's look at my question here. Which table could be represented by the percentage bar graph? Okay, so that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the correct table. Okay. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to think about these numbers, okay? So supper has to be the largest quantity in the table because it's the largest portion of my percent bar graph, okay? So let's look at these. Supper, is that the largest out of these numbers? It is, okay? So that might be an answer. Here, supper is the largest. So that might be an answer. Supper is the largest here, and supper is the largest here. So if I go by the supper, it's the largest in all of them, okay? Let's look at lunch. Lunch is just a small portion. It's the smallest portion. So lunch should be the smallest number in the bunch, okay? So in this case, 4 is not the smallest number here. So this one can't work, okay, because it's showing me that 3 is the smallest number, and that doesn't agree with our chart. Breakfast should be the medium number, okay? So let's look here. Supper is the largest, breakfast is the second largest, and then lunch is the smallest. That one checks out, so we might put a question mark there. In this one, G, it's telling me that breakfast and lunch are both 4. They're the same number. They're not the same number here, are they? Breakfast and lunch, 10 and 30. They're different numbers. So this one can't be true because the breakfast and lunch are not the same percentage. So I'm going to cross out G. Over here, let's look. 0, 3, and 4. Is breakfast 0? Did 0 of the students pick breakfast as their favorite meal? Let's look up here. No. 30% of them picked breakfast as their favorite meal. So this one doesn't work because of the 0. I'm going to cross it out. That leaves me with just H, and you know we always check our work when we come to one answer, so we're going to check that work. So the way I'm going to figure this out is I am going to find the total first. So 9 plus 3 is 12, plus 8 is 20. So if I add these together, I get 20, carry the 2. 2 plus 1 is 3. So that tells me there are 30 students. That didn't come out very well. 30 students in this class. So this is telling me that 9 out of the 30, or 9 divided by 30, picked breakfast. So let's take a look at that. 9 divided by 30. I'm going to go over here. 9 divided by 30. Remember, top dog always goes in the house. Can 30 go into 9? No. I add a decimal and a 0. Bring my decimal up. 30 into 90 goes 3 times. So I'm going to do 3 times 30 is 90. I subtract and get 0. So 9 divided by 30 is 0.3. If I change that to a percent, I hop 2 places over and I get 30%. So far, that is what I got for breakfast. So that checks out. I'm going to put a little check mark there. Let's look at lunch. 3 out of 30 is what? Let's do the math. Divide. 30 can't go into 3, so I add a decimal and a 0. Bring my decimal up. 30 goes into 30 just once, and when I subtract, I get 0. So 3 divided by 30 is 0.1. To convert that to a percentage, I move it over 2 hops. I get 10%. And that's what I got here, right? So that checks out. Let's look at supper over here. 18, the part, out of 30, the whole, equals, let's do the math. 18 divided by 30. Can 30 go into 1? No. Can 30 go into 18? No. I have to add a decimal and a 0. Bring my decimal up. 30 into 180, I know that goes 6 times because 3 times 6 is 18. So 30 times 6 is 180. So 6 times 30, subtract and get 0. So 18 divided by 30 is 0.6. To make it a percentage, I hop over 2 places to the right, and that becomes 60%. And 60% is what I found here. So this one checks out, and our answer is H. So go ahead and put H as your answer in that first question below, okay? And then in the we do and the you do, I want you to make sure you're doing the part out of the whole and dividing, okay? So use these tips to finish the rest of these questions. There's a little DOL at the end of this lesson, and I think you guys will do great. See ya.